Please give a warm welcome to Barb Jacobson.
Hi, thank you very much for having me here. Yeah, it's been quite a long road to get here in many ways. Okay, really what I want to do today is talk about how we're really getting things very backwards in our society right now. You heard yesterday about money from Ole, about how we're allowing private banks to create money on our behalf, and it's really the only, even though it's the only resource that humans actually create for themselves, we're allowing a whole kind of little cadre of people to control that and to control where that's spent. We also heard from Valerie about work-life balance and how we're kind of getting things wrong. That on the one hand, we're supposed to look after each other, but on the other hand, everything else mitigates against it in terms of jobs and the kinds of pressures that we face. We're getting a number of other things backwards, I think. If you look at something like the gross domestic product and the way we measure that, we're measuring things as beneficial. Everything that goes in there is the product of the society, but we're also including things like armaments and polluting industries and the sorts of activities that we don't necessarily want to be happening in society. Another thing that I think we're getting backwards at the moment is what you see now is a kind of inverse relationship in pay. All right, so basically the people that are getting paid the most in our society are actually the people that if they disappeared tomorrow, we probably wouldn't even notice that they were gone. I'm talking about financiers, I'm talking about people who deal with insurance, I'm talking about lawyers. I mean, well, not all lawyers maybe, but yeah. Quite a lot of the legal profession, unfortunately. And yet, all right, the people who are getting paid the least or nothing in society are actually the ones that are doing the things that we really depend on the most, okay? Whether that's mothers and fathers who are looking after their children and elders, whether that's volunteers in our community, whether that's also very low-paid workers who are picking up our rubbish, or whether that's nurses, or whether that's teachers. I know teachers are paid in different ways in different societies, but by and large, and certainly in the UK, they're not paid very much, particularly when they're teaching smaller kids. In care, we have a kind of weird situation where what we do as women, which is to give birth to kids, which is called labor, we can't actually call on any resources in order to support that in our own right. We either have some kind of private, support from our families or from our husbands or from our partners, or we have to really scrap around, and if we need support from the state, we need to fill out a lot of forms, we need to justify ourselves, we need to sort of talk about, tell them, the very intimate details of our lives, and usually, because benefits are usually paid by the household, we have to prove either that we are sleeping with somebody or we're not sleeping with somebody, which is a very strange thing for the state to get involved with, in my view. And in the States, in the US, it really does come down, and it's actually more and more in the UK, where they're actually using police to go into people's houses to rifle through people's panty drawers and rifle through people's personal belongings just to prove whether somebody is actually a real partner or not, which is really bizarre. So yeah, with care, it's something that is always counted on but never taken into account. So we have no measurement for this in our economic statistics. It's just sort of taken for granted, basically, and it's something that I would like to see change with the introduction of basic income, for sure. Right, but what I don't mean, and I agree with Valerie on this completely, what I don't mean is by attaching a monetary value to each and every task of love, but by allowing people, everyone, the means to care for each other and still subsist in their own right. Most care is fluid from day to day, When you're looking after a child, you can't be on a time clock. It just doesn't work very well. And people who have to do that, it's a very, very big stress whether they get paid for it or not. We see also with I see every day with working with older people in London. What happens when paid care is sliced up into chunks of a quarter hour or 15 minutes each, and the carer is pressed to get on to the next job as quickly as possible. What you get is unhappy carers, you get unhappy clients, and then you get unhappy families, and it's really a terrible situation. So care underpins every other economic and social activity, but it would be fatal to play the same game that the market plays with it. We would know the price of everything and the value of nothing in relation to care if we allowed that to happen. Moreover, as one of our UK basic income activists said, I want paid carers for my sister. She has her sister had a terrible brain injury a few years ago and needs 24-hour care, to really want to do their jobs and to be happy in them. Then I'll know she's being looked after well. So rather than view care through the lens of the market, we need to view the market through the lens of care. And I think we've seen some really good examples of that. The biomimicry examples, I think, were very good. And the mushroom thing and all the what were they called? The whole bunch of people that are doing enterprises which are about looking after our environment, as well as looking after looking after themselves. Sorry, excuse me. That those are really good examples where you can actually, create a life for yourself and create a business for yourself while still looking after other people and looking after our planet. And I think that's certainly the direction that we need to go. The market, so what we need to ask in relation to the economy is, does the market distribute the resources that we need to look after ourselves, each other, and the environment equitably and to the degree that is needed? Does the market provide support for the kind of green technologies that we need to look after our planet? Does the market help us nourish good relationships with each other, and whether that's on a personal or a national level? And again, I think we're seeing at the moment that with the wars that are going on, both in the Middle East and Africa and various other parts of the world, that where the market is basically deciding that we're going to kill each other, because it's the market where as long as we have to justify the armaments industry, and we have to justify all the things that go on around war as jobs, and that's okay because it's jobs. We're going to get that kind of thing. And and that said, I'm not anti-market. People trade with each other and have done for millennia, and it can be a force for peace. I mean, one of my big heroes is Thomas Paine, and he had huge hopes for trade as a way to get over war. If you look at, he's kind of thought of as one of the first people to talk about a kind of basic income in agrarian justice. But before that, in Rights of Man, he talked about the huge benefits of countries not spending money on war, but in working out good trade relationships with each other, and how that could be a real kind of motivator for peace. Right. Okay. So what I also want to do is just talk about what we've been doing for basic income. I'm coordinator of Basic Income UK, and I've been doing that for about 3 years. It's a voluntary job. It's not something I'm paid for. And likewise, I'm also chair of Unconditional Basic Income Europe, which is an alliance of individuals and organizations in 25 countries in Europe. We started both Basic Income UK and also Unconditional Basic Income Europe. We kind of started with the European Citizens Initiative for Basic Income in 2013, where we gathered about 300,000 signatures in support of basic income across Europe. And although we didn't get the million that you need in order to get an audience with the European Commission about your subject, what it did do was bring together quite a lot of people throughout the continent, for basic income, and it's a place where we can trade information, we can exchange tactics, and also we've started working on in terms of lobbying and also trying to influence things on the European level, on the EU level, and oddly, just the last few weeks we've had some really good news. That in its consideration of the social pillar, and also in relation to their considerations of the future of work, they're really starting to talk about basic income seriously, and UBIE is being recognized as one of the major civil society organizations on that subject. In the UK, we're also having a lot of success, considering how short a time we've been organizing. We've recently, the Trade Union Council in the UK has passed a motion for basic income, and two other very large trade unions have also passed motions for it. The Green Party, of course, in the UK has supported basic income since 30 years, but they've only really started to take it seriously in the last couple years, and really started to push it in the last couple years. And I think that's actually had quite a big effect on the Labour Party. And it's actually starting to have an effect on the Tories. It's a really odd thing. The Prime Minister actually suggested that people be paid some portion of the profits of fracking, for example, which is not a great thing, and I definitely opposed it, and it was definitely a bribe, okay? But it's interesting that she used, and this is kind of what, like the big slogan of the Brexit campaign, she used, that people would have more control over their lives. So she does actually understand that, if people have regular money, we would have some measure of control. Yeah, that's just to say. I mean, there's also other things that we have a bit backwards. One is about sort of this kind of complete focus on jobs. Sorry, I'm just jumping back here because there were a couple things I forgot to say. If people might want to look up, there's a really amazing essay by David Graeber, which he wrote about 3 years ago and went completely viral immediately. And it's called On Bullshit Jobs. And it's about the phenomenon where people are being paid basically to do things which they themselves find meaningless, and which actually, again, you have this thing where they're actually quite well paid, but they're not feeling like they actually contribute very much either to their own lives or to those around them. I just also want to quote, I don't know if people know of a man named Buckminster Fuller. I don't know, with biomimicry. I don't know whether you use his work at all. I think you really should, because he was very much about sort of using nature as design, as a kind of design model, for sure. But he claimed in 1983 that a gallon of gas costs nature $1 million in kilowatt hours of energy to produce. And so by that reckoning, he said that by paying all these people who are not engaged in what he called livingry, it would be better to actually pay them to stay at home rather than to drive to work, and that it would be a positive cost benefit for the globe. And then while people are at home, these people would then have the chance to remember what they wanted to do before someone told them they had to earn a living. One thing Buckminster Fuller was very much into was how there is actually an abundance on the planet, that if we manage to kind of sort it out and look at the planet as a whole, and look at our resources as a whole, and then we can actually start to think about distributing everything what people need in a kind of global way, then we can sort these things out. Yeah, that's pretty much all I want to say. If people have questions, I don't think I've spoken for that long, but anyway, as I say, I really think that we do have things really very backwards, and I really would like to sort of see that our standard for the economy move from this kind of constant kind of profit and measurement idea to something where we're actually looking at economic ideas and looking at economic activities through a care lens rather than through the market lens. That until we actually start doing that, then it's not going to, we're not going to make that much progress. And basic income, I mean, while it won't solve all these problems for sure, it's not going to, on its own, it's not going to change the way we pollute. It's not going to change the way we deal with energy. It's not going to change poverty and all the rest of it by itself. But I think it's a really good first step in order to do that. It has also the potential to transform how we think, not only about work, but how we live in society. Because if you accept that everyone deserves the means to live without the need to tell them about how to live or what to do with the money, you're not looking at people as mere cogs in the wheels of history. I think I'm from the left, and certainly on the left, we've always had this kind of really mechanistic idea of both how the economy works and how history works, and that it's somehow some inevitable force to go this way or that way. And I think we've kind of proven that doesn't actually work. If you accept that people have some stake in the society around them and should have their share of it, regardless of what the market pays for and what they actually do, you accept that everyone makes a contribution, whether paid or unpaid, and want to make sure that they're supported doing so. So thank you very much. That's all I've got to say. Cheers.